solution to this problem. So here's a container, it's filled with oil. They place a cup with a sample in it. And the cup and the sample is called a cup sample system. So it's all one thing. Question 1. Draw and label the real forces acting on the cup sample system. And I tried to put a dot in there. I don't think it showed up. So instead of drawing the cup sample, you just draw a dot because it's a free body diagram. Right? I have two forces. Here are my two forces. They're equal in magnitude, opposite in direction. They originate on the dot. One goes up, one goes down. The up one is my buoyant force. The down force is the weight of the mass cup sample, the mass cup system, sorry. So this M is actually two things. It's actually, that M is MC and MS. I think you'd be okay if you write, well, I think you need to be explicit about what the mass is. There's actually two things here, right? So there's the cup and the sample. So you really do need to be explicit. If you call this mass total, I think you'd be fine. Okay. All right, part 2. The student comes up with this expression. The word expression just means equation or relationship. Okay. And they come in that they did something to come up with this. Okay. Probably a bunch of data was taken, and then they came up with this equation. Now, on an xy coordinate plane, what would you graph to get a straight line function whose slope would mean the density of the oil, right? So maybe you're trying to solve for the density of the oil. Well, it's in the equation right there. So I can make myself bigger. Okay. So, xy coordinate plane. Here's the equation. Okay. My guess is they're going to make us do this. I'm going to start talking about this at the beginning of the year. This is called linearization. And so what they want us to do is they're going to ask you some question about a graph and a straight line. Now, you need to know a little bit of math here. You need to know what the equation of a linear function is, of a straight line. And that is y equals mx plus b. Right? So, here's how I learned how to do this, because when I first saw it, I didn't understand what in the world was going on. They say something about a linear function. What would you graph? Y and x-axis to get a linear function. Now, why do we want a linear function in the first place? Well, because it's a lot easier to find the slope of a straight line than it is a curved line. If you want to find the slope of a curved line, you need calculus. You don't want to do that. So, they're probably going to ask you about a linear function. We want the slope to be the density of the oil. Here's density of the oil in the equation right there. It's in the denominator. I need to get this equation to fit this form. That's all this means. I thought this was this big complicated thing. That's all they're asking you is to take this equation and get it into this form. A y, an equal sign, an m and x, and then maybe a b. There might not be a b. Just depends. We need an m, that's the slope of the line, right? And we want the m to be the density of the oil. We want m to be that. Okay? Or some form of that. I'll show you what I mean. Now, I have an equal sign here. You see I have one there. See how I already have one thing here? Perfect. So this V naught, pick a different color. This V naught can be my Y. Perfect. There we go. That's what I can graph on my y-axis. I'm halfway there. I just need to figure out what am I going to graph on the x-axis. Okay. Well, I want m, which is my slope, to be rho naught. It's in the denominator. This is a little tricky. Okay. Okay. And then this is x. This is whatever this ends up being is what I'm going to put down here. Okay. So this is tricky. This looks like all one thing, But how can I rewrite this to be two separate things? How can I take this and turn it into two separate things, an m and an x? This top part I can put here as my x. It can be mc plus ms. Now what do I multiply this by to give me this whole thing? In other words, how can I get this rho naught to be in the bottom here? Well, wouldn't I take this and multiply by 1 over rho naught? When I multiply these two together, don't I get this whole thing? This becomes my m, and then this becomes my x. So my x, on my x, I can graph that. What is this? This is the total mass, right? It's the mass of the cup and the sample within the cup. So this is really total mass. So I can graph total mass on the bottom. I can graph volume of oil on the y-axis. That will give me a slope of, it actually gives me a slope of 1 over, which is fine. I can solve for this, and then I can take the reciprocal. If I'm trying to look for this, I can just take the reciprocal, right? So I'll find that slope. We call this linearization. I'll try to do this to you every so often because it will more than likely show up on the test. So just know that.